Hey everybody, welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. Today I'm taking a break from restoring Hero Quest to take a look at magnetizing the miniatures from Space Crusade. This game comes with 3 sets of Marines, and all of those Marines have interchangeable weapons. This was achieved by having pegs on all of the weapons that go into holes in the Marines' abdomens. The problem with that is that over time it is possible for those pegs to become weak and snap off, and in fact it is quite common to see copies of this game for sale where some of the weapons are broken. To resolve that problem, we're going to be snipping off the pegs and magnetizing the weapons instead. And I have to point out, magnetizing isn't something I do frequently, so this video may not reflect the absolute best way to achieve this. This is just how I achieved it, and I'm happy with the results I got. As you can see here, this is a Marine that I have already magnetized. You can see there are 2 magnets in the gun, and there are 2 magnets in the Marine, one in the cavity in the abdomen, and then one in the wrist. You can probably get away with just doing 1 magnet in the abdomen, but by having the second magnet in the wrist, you get a better connection, and you always ensure the weapons are being held in the correct angle. So here we have a Blood Angel ready to be magnetized, and you can see there is already a hole in the abdomen, and that hole is almost 3mm wide, but not quite. And we are going to prep this guy for magnetizing. Here we have a bolter, and you can see that it has a peg on the end of it. As I mentioned, those pegs go into the abdomen, and that's how they originally were held in place, but those pegs do become weak and snap, unless you are very, very careful. Of course, we need some magnets. I'm using 2 different sizes. I have some 3mm diameter, 3mm thick magnets, which I will be using just for the hole in the chest. And then I also have some magnets that are 2mm diameter and only 1mm deep, and those are for the wrists and the guns. And there are 2 things you need to be careful with when you're dealing with magnets. One is you have to make sure the polarities are always in the right direction, because when you're attaching magnets to magnets, if the polarities are reversed, the gun is going to fire off of the miniature rather than snapping to it. So you need to make sure that all the polarities are in the right direction. The other thing you have to be careful of is you are handling very strong magnets that are also very small. If you were to ingest these and then a whole bunch of them snapped together inside your stomach, it would be a problem. So you really want to make sure you keep these away from children. If you have children in the house, put them in a safe place, keep them locked away, and handle them with care when you're working with them. As you can see here, they do have quite a lot of pull, pap. And these magnets are incredibly cheap. You can get packs of 50, packs of 100 on eBay or from other online retailers for a couple of quid. The first thing we need to do with our miniature is actually remove the backpack. If it's glued in place, it's not the end of the world, just leave it. We are not magnetizing the backpacks. They actually connect with pegs the same as the guns do, but we're actually going to glue those in place eventually because you don't ever need to remove the backpacks from the miniatures. So there's no point putting a magnet in there. And then of course, before we do the magnetizing, if you want to, you can do a bit of cleanup with a mold line remover or a knife. I will probably do most of my cleanup before I paint the guys later on. And then of course we are going to need a pin vise drill. This is a small hand drill which has a range of small drill bits which we can use for drilling into our plastic miniatures to make the recesses for our magnets. And we're going to use a range of different drill bits. The first drill bit I'm using is actually a 3mm drill bit because the hole in the abdomen is not quite 3mm wide, and also it has a slightly flat side on it to stop the pegs freely rotating in them. So we need to make sure that it is a perfect circular hole and it is 3mm diameter, so we are going to very carefully widen it out with our pin vise drill. Like so. And we can do a little dry fit test here with our 3mm diameter magnet, and you can see that's going to fit in nicely. Next up, we need to put a pilot hole in the wrist. So I'm using a smaller pin vise drill here, and I'm going to make a pilot hole in the very center of the wrist. And this will just make sure that I don't go squiffy when I actually drill the full-sized hole, because these wrists aren't much wider than the 2mm that they need to be for the magnets. So with the pilot hole done, I'm going to use that to guide my 2mm drill bit to prepare the wrist. Just need to be careful here, you don't want to go too crazy. It's not really a problem when you do the wrist here, but later on, if you put too much pressure on, if you go too fast, you can actually drill straight through the piece you're working on. Don't do that, be careful. After drilling the holes, clean out any plastic flecks that are left in them, and then you're ready to actually place the magnets. As I mentioned before, you need to be careful with the polarity of the magnets. You need to make sure that the magnets are going to connect in such a way that the gun will actually adhere to the miniature rather than pushing away from the miniature. Furthermore, you have to make sure that every gun you make will clip onto any miniature so that the weapons are completely interchangeable. And to do that, do one miniature, one gun. And then you can use that miniature and that gun as a template for all of your other pieces. You can see what I've done here is I already have magnets in this bolter, and I've actually used those magnets to connect 2 more magnets, and because they've connected to each other, I know that I've got the polarities the right way round, and now I can attach them to the miniature. Of course, that also makes it easy to manipulate very small magnets because they're not going to roll away, they're not going to ping across the table. I'm just going to put a drop of super glue into each of these holes now. You don't want too much in there. If you put too much in there, you can wipe it off. But you want enough to hold the magnets. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to place the bolter in position as it would be, and the magnets will fit into the holes, and then I'm going to slide the bolter sideways, and the magnets will be left behind in the miniature, and they will be the right depth, and they will be secured in place. If any super glue is spilled out over the sides, you can wipe that up with a little piece of kitchen roll. But there we have 2 magnets, and again we know the polarity is correct. We now need to magnetize a gun. So we have here another bolter, and we're going to use our side snips to remove the plastic peg. Don't cut your thumb off. And then we're going to do pretty much the same thing here. We're going to use the small pin vise drill to make 2 pilot holes, 1 in each hand, and then we will use the 2mm drill bit to drill out the holes for the magnets to go in. And then what we are doing is the same trick in reverse. I have placed 2 magnets on the miniature, and because they've connected to the miniature, I know I've got the polarities the right way around. And then I'm going to put a small amount of super glue into the 2 holes on the bolter, and then I'm going to place the bolter over the magnets that are in position on the miniature, making sure they fit into the holes, and then swipe sideways again, and I have the magnets positioned in the bolters. And there we go, that's it, and you can see when the super glue is dry, that gun will connect nicely to that miniature, and because I'm doing that technique with the magnets, every single gun that I make, I know that I've got the polarity the right way round, and every gun is going to attach to the miniature. And that's it, that's all there is to it. It's the same process for every gun. It's also the same process for the commander miniatures, although they have different weapons. They still have a connector point in the abdomen and a connector point at the wrist, so it's exactly the same process. And it's pretty easy really, and I think it's nicer than having to worry about pegs bending and snapping. But that's it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, please consider pressing the like button. If you've really enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so. And hopefully, I'll see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.